about. That's not what our founding fathers established it for.
Gil, did you have a question?
Yes, sir. There's a logical follow-on to that. Question 12 asks, should term limits be applied to judges? And I guess you indirectly say that that would be through defeat in an election. But what you really said here is it should be considered at any time it's determined that a judge is not qualified to serve, is not following the law, is apathetic, callous, indifferent, unprofessional, and/or has lost the respect of the citizens. Can you give us an example where that has actually happened? Especially in light of the question that you just answered about some of the injustices you've seen.
Absolutely right. I've had judges in my 21 years that were my friends. I've had judges in my 21 years that I campaigned for. And those same judges, in the end, I've lost friendships over, I wouldn't support. The best way I can describe that is when an attorney becomes a judge and puts on that robe, that does not give that judge the right to be callous, indifferent, pompous, arrogant, whatever you want to call it. The judge, the judicial system expects everybody that comes before that court to show that judge, that office, respect. I think the judge should show everybody respect also. Just because I put on a robe doesn't mean that I'm better than anybody that comes before that court, whether they're attorney, or plaintiff, or defendant, or an inmate.
Okay, but my question really was, if you're saying we should not, okay, you're saying if that happens, the judge should be removed.
Absolutely.
Have you ever seen that happen?
A judge removed? Yes, I have. In Montgomery County, in a county court of law. I just did not mention any names.
As an election or some other method?
As a result of a grievance filed to the Judicial Conduct Commission.
Yeah, with over 30% of the drunk driving and deaths in Montgomery County attributed to illegals, what would you do to fix that? And the second part of that is, do you believe that we ought to have the ignition interlock system for the first-time offenders for DWIs?
Well, that's more than one question. Let me start off by saying the thing that surprised me or scared me the most was back last August or September when Brett Ligon came and spoke, and out of the entire Code of Criminal Procedure or any other laws that a judge has to follow, if you recall, there's only 2 situations for enforcement against illegal aliens. In the state, the law enforcement in the state, the judges were in none of those scenarios. It was the federal system that only could do anything about illegal aliens. And I believe there was one sentence that he said that the only thing a judge can do is when he becomes aware that the defendant in front of him is an illegal alien, he has to notify the appropriate authorities. I find that ridiculous. I find that is we're putting it on the federal government to take care of the solution, and that hadn't happened and it's not going to. So I believe that locally, and the citizens of this state are the ones that are going to have to be taking care of that. I mean, our state government's already putting forth tons of resources on the problems we have along the border. That's a federal responsibility. The federal government's not going to do it. So, I mean, the state's going to have to do it. And of course, I'm talking about the border in that situation. When you're talking about DWIs, obviously, and that's one of the questions, obviously, what's been done so far has not been a deterrent. And I don't know what the deterrent is, but the system you mentioned, or having them do routine breathalyzer tests, random breathalyzer tests, something needs to be done to cut it, to nip it in the bud. Because again, we're not trying to protect that defendant from that DWI charge. We're trying to protect the citizens of Montgomery County.
Okay, one quick question, because we're Running out of time for our last
I'll
person.
talk,
I appreciate
obviously.
it.
Just a quick question with a quick answer. Do you believe that the purpose of the court is to protect the majority from the minority or the minority from the majority?
Well, whether it's the court or the government, I don't see why the majority isn't the one that's supposed to lead. I think the majority is the one that's supposed to prevail.
So protect the majority from the minority, is that what you're saying? Or the minority from the majority?
In the court, I mean, that's the way our laws are set up, that's the way our Constitution is set up.
So
It didn't set up to protect the minorities to the detriment of the majority. I don't know if I answered your question, but it's more so than just the court. It's with our own government.